Hello, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to tonight's webinar. I'm so happy that you took the time out your busy schedule to join me again. Tonight, we're talking once again about how to use digital marketing and how to use digital marketing to help your business get more customers and more sales. So, if that sounds good, let's get ready. Let me pull up the screen here. Give me a second. So tonight we're talking about how to make better decisions by using analytics. And once again, our first two webinars, I really was talking about how to understand digital marketing. And last time we were talking about how to understand your customer. And once again, I believe this is one of those foundational pieces because if you don't understand analytics, digital marketing is not going to make sense for you. So tonight, we're going to start from part one, just really defining what is analytics and getting a better understanding of that. So do me a favor. I want to check in and make sure you're all still there. If you're ready to get started, I want you to go in the chat comment box and type in Google me. So if you're ready to get started, type in Google me. A few comments here. Peace, Black man. Same to you, sir. Thank you. Anybody else? If you already get started, type in Google me. Okay, got a few. Google me. All right, got a few people signing in. Great. And I asked you that one to get you in the chat, also to get conversation going, but really, it really is all about Googling people, and it's funny now. I kind of joke sometimes. Somebody asks me, what is my price? What I do? I say Google me. Why? Because Google is the place where we all go to find out information. So once again, this whole webinar is about making sure that you are looking better on Google. So when somebody finds your company, they can come to your website and they can call you for business. Okay, so tonight I'll give you the agenda. Not gonna be too long, but first, like I said, we're gonna have an introduction to analytics because I believe that is very key when doing digital marketing, that you understand analytics, understand what's that telling you. Next, we're gonna talk about what numbers matter. Now, when it comes to analytics, there's social media analytics, there's email, there's website, everything, but I kind of give you a general understanding of what numbers matter, what numbers you need to track to help measure your success. And then also we'll talk about how you can use analytics to make business decisions. And that's something that's very key. So they're just not numbers, they're just not data, it's stats. Those data and those stats are telling you things. So we'll talk about how you can look at your data and say, okay, my data is telling me this, let me do this and this. And then also we're going to end with a recap. All right. So let's get started with intro to analytics. And I've kind of already said it, but I'll say it again. Analytics is so important because, a lot of people get started in digital marketing and they just put up a website, they just post social media, send out emails, but they get frustrated when they don't get phone calls, when they don't make sales. And I think a lot of that frustration comes down to analytics. So you need to know how many likes your posts are getting, how many views your videos are getting, how many visits you're getting to your website. These numbers tell you how well you're doing. And also looking at analytics, it tells you what you need to change to get better numbers. So that's really the point of analytics and why it's so important to your business. So before I move on, do me a favor. Once again, type in the chat box. When I say analytics, what does that mean to you? So type in the chat box, what does analytics mean to you? It can be a short answer. It doesn't have to be too long, but a few words. What does analytics mean to you? When I say analytics, what do you think? What comes to mind? Okay, one comment here says numbers, exactly. Somebody else says stats. Once again, numbers. I see a good comment here. Um, figuring out through data who's the target. Yeah, those are all really good summaries of what analytics is. It's just that it's analytics or it's stats. It's telling you what's going on with your customers. And I said this earlier, but it's so key because in social media and digital marketing, we spend so much time doing things, and a lot of times the things we're doing are not working. So we have to use analytics to make sure that what we're spending our time, our money on is being beneficial. Similar to this webinar, I'll stop several times through tonight's webinar and ask you, how am I doing? Ask you questions. Why? Because if I was just to talk at the screen all night and just point at you and tell you what to do, I wouldn't know what's working and what's not working. But by having your feedback, having you type in comments, I can understand how things are going. I can understand if I'm doing good, if I'm talking too low or too fast. So once again, analytics is giving you that feedback from your customer. And then you take that feedback and you make changes based on that feedback. So those are all great answers. So I'll give you a short one that I like to use. Analytics is all about identifying trends and patterns in your customers' behavior. So analytics is all about identifying trends and patterns in your customers' behavior. And once again, I'll say that's really key. That's what it is. It's all about tracking your customers. So seeing how long they stay on your website, seeing what they click on, what pages they visit, seeing how long they watch your videos, seeing if they like your social media posts, if they share your posts. These things are all very important. And really the key is once you use the numbers to really find out what your customer is doing, then it unlocks, the data. It lets you know what you need to do. So, I always say in many ways that, companies that use analytics, they outperform companies that don't by 85%. 85%. That's a huge number. And I think it's so telling. And where it gets at is that it's saying that companies that are using data are smarter, they're faster, they're responding to their customers. So once again, using data helps you better align your products, your services, your pricing, your offerings to your customers. So once again, I believe, customers are always telling you what they like and what they don't like. And I believe that the smart companies, the companies that are cutting edge, are listening to their customers. Let's say you had a restaurant and you have 10 items on your menu, and you find that customers order the same 5 or 6 items over and over again. Now, common sense would say, hey, guess what? If those customers are ordering the same items over and over again, and nobody ever orders the broccoli or Brussels sprouts, maybe I should stop spending the money to buy that product and sell that. So that's what I mean. Using analytics helps you save money. So instead of investing your time and your energy into products and services that are getting no response, that are not making money for your company, you can stop doing those and you can change and shift, and you can place your money, place your advertising, your marketing into things that are working. And that's why it's so important. And that's, again, why companies that use analytics, they're winning. They're making more money. Why? Because they're getting an understanding of their customers. I'll give you one quick example. Amazon. I believe today is Amazon Prime Day. My wife's been shopping all day, and I don't blame her because the prices are great. But Amazon is one of those companies that uses analytics, and that's why they're so big and successful. Why? Because they're tracking what you buy. So if I was to go on tonight to Amazon and I was to do a search for suits, okay, Amazon would track that. And then the next time I come on Amazon, they would show me suits, or they would say, hey, you like this suit? What about suits like this? So once again, that's why it's so important. Understanding your customers' behavior, understanding those patterns and those trends. And once again, that's why Amazon is so addictive. Why? Because they're getting inside the customer's head by using that data. And they say, hey, if the customer buys this product, if a customer watches this video, we're going to show them similar videos or products to that. I'll give you one more example. Netflix. So Netflix is huge. So let's question real quick. Type in your favorite Netflix show real quick in the chat box. Type in your favorite Netflix show. Let's see Let's see what you all like to watch. So type in the comments your favorite Netflix show. Let's see what we have. While we're waiting, thanks for the comment. Your suits are fly. Thank you. I try. I'm glad you noticed. Okay. We have one comment here. Let's see. The Crown. I haven't watched that before, but I'm sure it's a good show. Okay. What do you have next? We have Bridgerton. Yes, my wife loved that. Loved that show. Anybody else want to type in what's their favorite Netflix show? Okay, so when you don't have two Netflix fans in here. Okay, but I use those two examples. So what happens on Netflix? Netflix again is a company that is built off data. So when you go on Netflix, no two people have the same home screen. So Netflix shows you movies to watch based on what you watched before. Why? Because the thought is if you watched this show before, this certain setting, these certain characters, you'll probably like similar shows. So once again, you can apply that same thing to your business. If customers are liking a product, if they're buying something, if they're watching a video or social media post, you'll say, "Hey, I like this. Let me show this product more to your customers." And also on the reverse, if your customers are not watching a show, if they're not buying a product, that tells you, wow, you know what? Maybe I need to stop putting money behind this product or service. Um, I have a question here or a comment here. It says, I did not know. Oh my God, it's really smart. Customer home screens. Yeah, exactly. Netflix is so addictive. You sit there and you watch show after show. Why? Because they're giving you what you like. And I said it before in our last webinar about my wife and my dating history. You have to give your customers what they like. And if you give your customer what they like, they'll come back to you again and again and again. So I'll give you one more Netflix example. So the last few years, Netflix has started creating its own programming. And the programming is called, I believe, Netflix Originals. So those shows are shows that they create. They don't buy those from other networks. And what they've done is very smart. What Netflix does is they look at their customer data. They say we have millions of customers, thousands of customers that like this type of show, a show based in the city with a strong female lead based in the 1980s. And they take all that data, and guess what they do? They take that data and then they build a show around it. So that show is almost guaranteed to work. Why? Because they've already pulled their customers by looking at the customer data and said, okay, we have customers that like this show. Let's invest our money and create a similar show, and then they'll watch that show, and that show will be successful. So once again, if you ever want to think about analytics, think about how Amazon shows you stuff. Think about how Netflix recommends the next show to you. Why? Because that's based off your past viewing behavior. And that's the same way your business must operate. You must give customers what they want. And you're giving what they want based off the analytics, based off the numbers. So in many ways, I liken analytics to a dashboard. So this is a dashboard on a car. And think about how frustrating driving would be if you didn't know how fast, how slow you were going, how much gas you had left. It would be frustrating. And I believe a lot of business owners right now, digital marketing, are operating that way. They're driving a car with no dashboard. And once again, you are not going to know how well or how bad you're doing unless you measure that. So analytics, once again, is going to measure your business. It's going to tell how well you're doing or how bad you're doing. And you can change that. So the same way, you step on the gas pedal and the car goes, I'm not going 50, I'm going 70. I'm not going 30, I'm going 40. Hey, my tank's half empty. I need gas. Once again, so in life and in business, we need those numbers because numbers help us make decisions. If you were driving a car and you didn't know how fast or slow you were going, what would happen? You would get tickets, you would get into accidents, all that stuff. It's the same way for digital marketing. You have to use analytics as your dashboard to figure out what is going on with your digital marketing. That is very key. I have a saying, and I say that analytics or data is the end of guessing. I'll say it again. Analytics or data is the end of guessing. Quickly in the comments, when I say that, what does it mean to you? When I say the analytics is the end of guessing, what does that mean to you? So feel free to type in the comments. When I say analytics, the end of guessing, what does that mean to you? So let's check in. Let's see what you think. What does that mean to you when I say that? What does analytics is the end of guessing mean to you? All right, going once, going twice. Okay, we got somebody. Great. And what did they write? They write, now we are know what a customer doing. Yes, I got that. Another one, it says, it tells me that the information is based on facts. Okay, that's great. Number one here, what do we say? Numbers, driving choices, not hope or guess. I love that. One more comment here says that you can rely on data to tell you what your audience wants instead of guessing. Yeah, you got it. And that's exactly it. So the thing I love about digital marketing is everything in digital marketing is trackable. You can tell who saw it, when they saw it, how long, and what city or state they were viewing from. And that's something that's different from other forms of media. So you think about TV and radio and print, all these things just kind of scream at customers. You know, they may see it and they may not. But the thing I love about digital marketing, you know for sure what customers saw your digital marketing and how they interacted with that. So I believe in business now, we're still doing a lot of guessing. We're guessing what products, we're guessing what services our customers want. But I believe really looking at the data is going to tell you what your customers want. And just again, give an example of Netflix and Amazon. These companies are leading companies. And I think why? Because they understand what the customers want and they give that to them. So use your analytics to stop guessing. So instead of guessing on what blog post you should write, look at your analytics. See what keywords people are typing in to find your website. See what terms or phrases they want. And then you write content around those words. You know, if you're doing a video, instead of making a video on YouTube and just talking about random topics, do a search on Google Trends or something like that and find out what terms or what words people typing in. So what that does, it's going to save you so much money. It's going to save you so much time and so much frustration. So once again, you're not going to waste your time spending money or time on things that don't work. So there's still some guesswork involved in digital marketing. Nothing is 100% certain, but with digital marketing, we have a better educated guess on what our customers are saying. I have a comment here. I'm going to read that real quick. It says, when we started creating our ads based off comments that people left on our original ads, we saw sales soared. I love that. that's it. You got it. That's analytics. So analytics is taking in your customer feedback, and that feedback can vary. It can be comments on social media. It can be customer service. So what kind of complaints do you get when people call into your business or email you? What are they saying, good or bad? Because even looking at some of that bad data, it can tell you, okay, this is something that we don't see. We need to change in our service and our product. And once again, your comment is great about the ads. Looking at the comments, that's a great place to get more information about your customer. We're not talking about social media tonight, but I'll bring it up now real quick. So if you're talking about ads on social media, you know, comments are so key because comments is that time where you can really have that one-on-one conversation with your customer and really find out what they want. So feedback is great. So you want to find ways to really make sure that you're tracking the customer data and then just not sitting on that data, but like we're talking about later, taking that data and helping that data make business decisions. And, you know, I said this earlier, analytics is the end of guessing. Yes, but there's still art to business. It's just not numbers. This still has to be art. You still know your customers, you know your region, what works. But what I mean by that is you're combining that art that you're doing, that gut feeling you have now with numbers. And I believe when you combine that gut feeling you have about which way to go in business with numbers, it's so much more powerful because now you have data to back up that feeling. And something I'll say too, and even before now you make a business decision, look at your data and see if the data backs that up. We can take that to an accounting thing. If you view that customers are paying their invoices too late, fine, look at your accounting software and see, okay, customers are paying 3 days late. Okay, great. Then that means you need to adjust and you need to send out more reminders, or you need to invoice earlier to break that down. So once again, data is so key. And I love the last comment. Taking that data and making business decisions on that data is very key. All right. So great questions so far. So moving on to the next section. And this section is about what numbers matter. And that's very key because there are so many stats and data you can track, analytics. You can track all day, but finding out what stats to track really matter. And then there's different stats. I'm sorry. So there's email stats, there's social media stats, there's website stats. So it really depends on what you're tracking. So in this section, I'm going to give a general overview of kind of what numbers you should track and look for. But this section, again, I really want you to chime in. So whether you have questions about your email analytics or social media or website analytics, this section is the section you can type in those comments, those questions, and I'll answer those. But I'm going to give you kind of an overview of kind of what numbers you should look for when looking at your analytics. So actually, let me back up first. I'm gonna say one thing first. So this webinar is presented by Grow with Google. So we're going to talk about Google Analytics, not this workshop, but on the next webinar on Thursday. So be sure to tune in for that. But analytics is a part of everything. So social media, email, video, everything has analytics. So we're going to talk a lot about Google Analytics later on. But if you're on Facebook, Facebook has analytics tool. So does Instagram and LinkedIn. Analytics is everywhere. So every program, every network that you're on has an analytics program. So we are going to talk more targetedly later about analytics, Google Analytics. But at the same time, you can apply these same lessons to analytics to any platform, to any software, whether that's social media, email, or your website. All right. So the first number you want to track is your audience. And I think that's really key. And it really depends on what you're tracking, whether it's social media, video, email, or so on. But having an understanding of your audience is so key. You want to get an understanding of, how many people are viewing your posts, how many people are liking your posts, how many people are coming to your website, and so on. So your audience. So that is really key, no matter what you're doing, that you have a firm understanding of what your audience is doing, because once again, it's all about them. You want to know what they're doing on your website, what they're doing on social media. So let's pause for a second. Does anybody have any questions about analytics on social media or email? Be sure just to type those in the chat box and I'll respond to those. I have a question here. Let's see. The U.S. Black Chambers, will you show us Google Analytics dashboard for the U.S. Black Chamber website so we can see a live example what you're presenting about? Great question. So yeah, I won't show you a live example of the Black Chambers website, but in our next webinar on Thursday, I will do that. I have a dummy of account analytics that has information in there, numbers and stats. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through Google Analytics. So I'll show you the dashboard. I'll show you what stats you need to work on. So tonight, really what I'm going to do is really start, just really defining analytics more. But yes, in our next webinar, I will break down really how to work in analytics within Google and really take you through a live dashboard and show you what stats and what reports and what things you want to make sure you key on. So that's a great question. That will be in our next webinar. One more question here. It says, if you're starting up like most of us, I think, how do we use analytics when we have no staff? Is there a way to support help for our startups? That is a great question. Once again, I'll share links at the end of the class. Google has plenty of help on that. While they can't track it for you, they can give you resources. But I guess one thing I want to do tonight in this webinar is, and even in Thursday's webinar is, I'm going to show you, like this section, what things really matter. So you don't spend your time because analytics, especially Google Analytics, is very detailed. You can spend hours looking at data and customers and patterns and all that and still be confused. So what I'm going to do this webinar and next webinar is really show you what things matter. So if it is yourself or just a small staff, I'm going to show you what really matters. And one thing too I'll touch on is Google has a dashboard, and the dashboard kind of shows everything that's going on. So that's a kind of an easy way to do that. So next week I'll show you more about really how to use Google if you're a small startup. But once again, I think the first thing is figuring out in your business what things that you want to track. So of course you want to track your website, you want to track social media and so on. But the first step I think is having a goal. Because once again, there's so many things that you can track analytics, but having an understanding of what do you want to track, what do you want to improve is a good place to start. But to answer your question again, yes, it can be tough doing it if you're a one-man shop or a small team. But the whole point of tonight's class and also Thursday class, I'll talk about more ways you can focus your time and energy to make sure that you can spend as least time as possible looking at analytics and more time running your business. So great question. Okay, let's move on to the next one. The next one that you want to focus on is acquisition. And this is very important. It's finding out how do they get to your website or social media. So there's a section in Google Analytics where it tells you that how they came. So if they came from Google search, if they came from an email link, if they came from social media link, if they came from a Google search. That's very important because when you can tell where your customers are coming from, then you can spend more money on those channels. So let's say you have a lot of customers come from social media. Great. Now you know I need to spend more time on social media because I'm getting a lot of visitors that come from social media to my website. So really have an understanding of how your customers are finding you is very important because that's going to tell you if your digital marketing is working. So if you're investing money in, let's say, doing an email newsletter every week, that's great. But if you can log into your analytics and see that, hey, I'm getting 10, 20, 30 visitors a week from my email marketing, you say, hey, that can work, and that's good. So it's all about that. It's all about just seeing what works. So you want to know the things that you're doing in the whole digital media space that are working. And the way you can tell that is by seeing that how people come and how people find your website and your company. I have a question here. Is there a free Chrome-based plugin called Built with Technology Profiler that allows your competitors to see your analytics ID so you can see what their traffic? Yeah, I'm not too sure about that. I've heard a lot about things like that help you spy on your competitors, but from what I know, there's no real way to do that. That data is protected. So if there is a service like that, it's probably guessing or giving you a general estimate or understanding of what's going on. But once again, there's so many tools out there that claim that. But one thing I'll be sure to do in our next webinar is there is a section in Google Analytics where you can not spy in competition, but you can see how they're doing. So it's called benchmarking. So you can compare your company against your competitor. So you can kind of get an understanding of how much visitors they're getting and things like that. So there are tools out there, but I don't think they, at least legally, can tell you directly what's going on. But there are tools within analytics where you can kind of benchmark yourself against other companies or against the industry. So let's say you're in healthcare. Great. So you can click that with analytics and it can show you, how your website is doing against similar size websites that are in the healthcare industry. So I'll be sure to cover that in our next webinar. But that's a great question. And you definitely always want to get more understanding on what is happening with your competitors. One more question here. It's not a guess. Go ahead and give you the ability to see your stats. Yeah, I agree. But yeah, having understanding of what's going on with your competitors is very, very important. Once again, in digital marketing, you're just not going against yourself. You're going against other companies as well. And, that's another side of the analytics that you want to really measure, how your competitors are doing. It's something that we call share of search. So, for example, if you were to go into Google and just type in your name, how many links do you have under your company versus your competitors? So that is something that we'll talk more about in our next webinar, but great questions. The next one we want to look for is behavior. And behavior is very important because behavior tells us how our customers are interacting with our website or social media. So when they come to our website, are they viewing pages? How long are they staying? What pages do they exit from? Things like that. For social media, are they liking? Are they sharing? Are they leaving a comment? Email, you can track clicks. Are they clicking on links? Are they viewing this on an iPhone or on a tablet or an Android? So behavior is so important. You want to get a good understanding of what customers are doing when they come to your website or your social media accounts. Because once again, understanding the behavior of your customers is so key because it tells you what they're doing. And that's very important. So we have a few questions here. And let's see. Says, no, I'm still in production mode right now. I'm not sure what that's referring to, but okay. We have one more question. Google Tag Manager, excellent for analyzing customer behavior. Yeah, I agree. Your events, you know a little something. But yeah, Google Tag Manager is excellent for understanding your customers. Also, Google Trends is also good. If you use Google Trends, that can let you know what terms are being searched for certain topics. But once again, I have a list of a lot of resources on Google that work for analytics or that are outside analytics that is still within Google that will give you a better understanding of what's going on with your customers. So I'll be sure to share those in our next webinar. So thank you for those questions. Okay, so moving on to conversions. The next big thing in analytics is you want to know how many customers took an action. So by taking action, I mean how many people fill out a form to download a PDF, how many customers bought something, how many customers watched a video, a conversion. So conversions really depend on what you're trying to do. So it can be email sign up, it can be a PDF download, it can be signing up for a free service, it could be making a purchase. So it really depends on what you're trying to attract, what your conversion really is, and it can really depend. The common conversion, of course, is a sale, but there's many things to lead up to a sale. So if they're visiting a page, if they're downloading a PDF, that counts as a conversion. So that's something that you will see all across analytics. So let's just pause here. Once again, Anybody have any general questions that I can answer about analytics before we move on to our next slide? Do you have any questions about analytics? Are you struggling with analytics, or any questions about how you can better use it? If so, feel free to type those questions in the chat box, and I'll do my best to answer those questions. I'll say this while I'm waiting on questions, and we'll talk about this more later in Thursday webinar, but analytics, it's an ongoing process. So, especially if you're a smaller company, you can't spend a ton of time on analytics. So I recommend, whether that's weekly or every 2 weeks or even monthly, having that time to look at your analytics. So, if you look at your analytics every day, that can be a lot. You may not see big shifts in trends, but you definitely want to set up a schedule to check analytics. And once again, that's a lot easier if you're a smaller company. So I would say at minimum bi-weekly, check your stats and analytics and see what's going on. Because once again, it's something that's constantly changing, and you want to be checking on your analytics, on a routine basis. 3, 6, 9 months shouldn't pass since you looked at your analytics. So try to have a schedule where you look at your analytics. So we have a few questions here. Let's see that. Okay. So we says, explain some other terminology such as bounce rate. Yeah. Bounce rate is something when somebody comes to your website and they leave right away. So that's when somebody comes to the site and let's say they don't see what they want, they leave. Let's say the website is loading slow and they leave. So something and analytics we talk about a lot is you want to have a bounce rate that's under 50%, because if it's over 50%, that means people are coming to your website and they're seeing something that's they don't like, they don't want, and then they're hitting the back button, going back to Google to find another company. So yeah, bounce rate is something, that you want to track within analytics, because it gives you an idea if your customers are seeing things on the website that they like. So that was a great question. We have more here. Let's see. Somebody had a question: how often should you look at it? Frequently. Yeah, I agree. You definitely want to set up a schedule where you're constantly looking at your analytics, because what that saying is, the things that matter or want to grow, if you don't measure them, they won't happen. So you want to have that time when you check in, to make sure that what you're doing in digital marketing is working. And the only way you can do that is to check in, on those numbers and make sure they're going in the right direction. Question here, it says, can you link a social media platform for Google Analytics? Yes, you can. And the cool thing about analytics is, I'll say that Google Analytics is kind of the flagship in a sense. There's more advanced tools that cost more money, but analytics is a free software that does a lot of things. So what it can do, it can tell you what people are coming from social media to your website. So yeah, you can track what's going on Twitter or Facebook or LinkedIn. But I will say there are some more kind of in-depth stats that analytics won't give you. So for example, Facebook analytics has so much information. So you can get a good understanding from Google Analytics, but logging in sometimes to Facebook Analytics or whatever platform, you get a lot more in-depth information. But yeah, you can see what's going on within analytics, what's going on social media. So that's a great one. See some more questions. It says, is there a guide and instructions for getting started with analytics you recommend? Yeah, that is a great question. Let me do this. Let me drop that in the chat if I can. Yeah, but there are a lot of good ways to get started with Google Analytics. Let me get a link for you real quick. And one thing with Google is, they have a lot of, free advice and webinars and follow up for that. So, yeah, I'm dropping the link in the chat now, and it's a good walkthrough and more in-depth steps on how to set up your account. So I'll just share the link in the chat with you. It's a good way to get started. Let me give one more link in the chat box as well. Give me 1 second. Like I say, it's fine. They are very good questions. So I'm definitely gonna make sure that uh, I prepare for the next webinar on Thursday with some more questions. This next link is from Go with Google, and it has a lot more detailed information, not on analytics, but a lot of things that we talked about. So there's one more. A lot of good videos that you can see. I'll actually share that screen with you real quick. So this decided to share the Grow with Google. This site has a lot of good information that you can refer to. There's a tab up here for business. I believe you go there, it has a lot more resources on analytics and everything we talked about. So that's a good place to visit. So great question. Let's go back. Any more questions in the chat box? Okay. All right, great. Let's get back to the presentation. All right, so now moving on to the next section, and we're talking about how to use analytics to make business decisions. And this is something we touched on earlier. These are not just numbers or stats. And I believe that the companies that are winning are using data. They're looking at their trends in data and saying, hey, if the numbers are showing this, we need to move with the data. So once again, this next section is about how you can use analytics to make better decisions for your business and for your digital marketing. So the first one we'll talk about is segmentation. And segmentation is about using information about customers to target them and split them into separate categories based on their demographics, behaviors, and attitudes. So that's really key. And I'll say it's really key because all your customers are not the same. So what analytics allows you to do is it allows you to look at the data and figure out, what trends customers are doing online and put those customers kind of in the bucket. So hopefully you can identify the different groups of your customers and give them different information, different marketing that may lead them to a sale. So that's why it's so important to understand your different segments. So we talked about this last webinar. We had a exercise where we were targeting somebody and we said they were 30 years old. They lived in a city, they worked in finance, and they were educated, had a college degree. So that's what I mean by segmentation. It's so key that you're finding out your customers and who they are. So I'll give you an example. I worked for years in the marketing industry, and I did a lot of email marketing. And I would think a lot of people they send out one mass email to all the customers that has the same headline, has the same offer. It doesn't even have the person's name. It says first name, last name, or dear customer. So those general emails don't work. So the best emails are the emails that are segmented. So let's say that I sell backpacks. Great. But I have different type of customers. I have parents that are buying backpacks for their kids. I have people that are going hiking. And I have people that buy backpacks for fashion. Well, guess what? Each one of those groups need a different message. You can't blast in with the same message. So that's why segmentation is so key. And once again, going back to email, the emails that do the best are segmented. Why? Because they're speaking to that person. And to go back to the example I gave of Netflix, Netflix is not showing everybody the same shows. Like your home screen is different than my home screen, different than your friend's home screen. Why? Because they're taking into account what you watch, taking into account your behaviors, your likes, your attitudes, and they're only showing you programming and shows that match your interests. And that's why everything on the screen you like, you click a show and you watch it for hours. So once again, that's the power of segmentation. You don't want to offer all of your customers the same thing because your customers are not the same. They're different. So you want to find ways to split those customers up into groups. And one way you can do that is by analytics. Because analytics will tell you sometime where they're coming from. So with analytics, you can see it has a map feature. So you can say, hey, most of my customers are not coming from New York. They're coming from Florida. So based on that, I need to change my messaging because it's different because most of my visitors are not coming from New York. They're coming from Florida. So once you understand their demographics, their behaviors, their attitude, you can better match your message, your offering, your products and services to what they need. I have a question here in the chat. It says, please talk about A/B testing, email sequencing, and drip campaigns. Yeah, that's a great question. Go back to email campaigns again. So one thing emails you have, and really you can do in all marketing, is A/B testing. And what that means is that you have two messages you send out, and you test it. And you send out one message, and it could be a change, simple as the headline, simply as the color, and you see which email gets the best result. And once again, that's very key because all your customers not the same. You're doing that testing to find out what messaging, what color scheme they respond best to. So I think that's very, very key when you're doing email marketing or any marketing. Do that A/B testing. Have a message, but say it in different ways that speak different people, and you can measure results and you can see what message gets the best response. I have one more comment here. A long one. Thank you, Gladys. You always have good comments, good questions. It says, sometimes you may see that a search result has found your business. Then there is an indication that the person reviewed the directions, but there's indication that the call was made to you. Yeah, I think you're referring to Google My Business. And Google My Business is a great tool. We'll talk more about that later. But yeah, it's great because I love Google My Business because you can see what the customer is doing. So when somebody types in your location on your phone, Google My Business lets you track that customer. So you can see if they came to your profile page, you can see if they hit directions to your location, and you can see if they called you as well. So it's very key to getting understanding of how customers are interacting with your business. But we'll talk about it more later. Great questions. But Google My Business is a great way to track how your customers are finding and interacting with your business. One more question here is, how can we be accounted when the call comes from a device and not online, or is determined the call is made to you? Yeah, great question. I'll say quickly, Google is really advanced, so they can track calls whether they're online or a cell phone as well. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. Google is really advanced. They can really identify where the phone call is coming from. They can tell you most times, I believe, whether it's a mobile device or a land device. But I think the majority of calls are coming now from mobile anyway, but they can tell you definitely where the call came from. One more question, and we're gonna move on here. And the question says, it sounds like profile needs to be tweaked so that directions are not misreported as phone calls. Yeah, it's hard for me to say because I haven't seen your account. But if you want to drop in the name of your business in the chat box, and I'll take a look at your listing and see what's going on. But yeah, directions should not be reported as phone calls. So that's happening. I will report that error to Google support. But if you can, drop in your business and I'll take a look at your profile and see what's going on. Great questions. Going back to the next one is forecasting. So forecasting predicts patterns that allow your business to understand the demand for a product or service beforehand. So I think that's one more thing about analytics that's great. You can understand, you can forecast, you can see what's coming down the line. So once again, looking at your numbers, you can identify trends and patterns. You can see where things are going. So once again, if you can identify things in advance that your customers want, you can prepare for that. So something simple, if you can see that a product online is selling out, well, fine, you know it's now time to restock that product. So once again, forecasting is key, and that's what data can really give you. And one thing I'll say too is with Google Analytics, and I'll show you this next class, is analytics, you can compare dates. So you could compare this day last year to this day this year. So you can see, let's say a holiday, you can compare this Black Friday to last Black Friday. And you can see what happened. And that's so key because you can really plan that way. You really can compare and contrast and see what happened one year and how things improved or how things regress in the following year. So once again, one good thing about analytics is you can choose your time frame. So you can look in the past and get an understanding of what's going on, and you can compare month to month. But once again, I think that's very key because one thing in digital marketing is you want to stay a step ahead of your customers. So if you kind of can predict or get an idea where things are going, that's a great way to use your analytics. Okay, next one is customer satisfaction. So improving your customer journey is so important. And, customers are not afraid to share that. And your analytics can improve their experience. And I think we said that earlier. I forgot who made the comment, but they said that they saw comments on their ads and they changed their ads based on those comments. And from that change, they made more sales. So customer feedback is huge. So that feedback can be customers leaving a page in their website very quickly. That can be having a high bounce rate. People come to your website and leave automatically. That can be leaving a negative review or a positive review on social media or on Yelp or someplace like that. But customer feedback is key, and customer feedback is something that needs to be tracked because as great as numbers are, nothing is like hearing from your customers. So in your analytics, you want to really have a focus on hearing from your customers. So making sure that your customers, satisfaction is being measured. I won't teach on this too long, but there's something in marketing that we call a net promoter score. Net promoter score. And what that does is that tracks your customer, how well they love your business. And it goes from a score of 0 to 10. So think about from 0 to 10, how likely is your customer to recommend your product or service to a friend? And that's something that a lot of companies, big companies, track. Most companies average around a 6 or 7. But think about that. You want to think about, are we giving off an experience that makes customers want to share that with other people? And that's something that is measurable. So even with analytics, you can see if customers are leaving a page a lot, that tells you it's not working. If you're posting on social media and nobody likes it, that tells you, hey, it's not working. Maybe it should be tweaked. Also, there outside analytics, there's surveys. So just sending out a survey, hey, from 1 to 10, rate our business, rate your service. That's so key because once again, that is giving you that information from their mouth and letting you know what they like or what they dislike about your business. And once again, you can take that feedback from that customer and you can use that to improve your business. Okay, so we're gonna move to the last section where we just kind of recap and we share a few resources. The hour went quick, so let's take a few minutes once again. If you have any questions about analytics, uh, type those in the chat box, and I'll answer those, and I'll wrap up. So, if you have any more questions about analytics, please type those in the chat box, and before we leave, I will answer those. Great. I see someone they sent me a request on LinkedIn. So yeah, feel free to reach out to me. My name is Sterling McKinley. I'm everywhere on every platform. But yeah, I'll be sure to check LinkedIn and get back to you and make sure I answer your question. So before we wrap up, are there any pressing questions about analytics? And keep in mind too that this was more of an intro webinar. In our next webinar, it'll be much more in detail. I'll be showing you actually, how Google Analytics looks and how to navigate it as well. So once again, this is kind of the the pre-webinar in a sense. But in our next webinar on Thursday, we'll get more into detail about how really Google Analytics can work for your business. I have a question here. It says, what is the difference between Google Analytics and Google Tag Manager? Yeah, that's a great question. They're kind of one and the same in a sense. So Google, as you will find out, has a ton of products that work together. So analytics is for tracking, your website, social media, kind of what's going on. Google Tag Manager is where you can create tags to track certain things. So let's say you're creating an ad campaign and the ad campaign has 10 different ads. Now, it may be kind of hard to track the ad within analytics. So with Tag Manager, you can create a tag on that ad. So when you go back to track it, it's a little easier to see kind of where it came from. So they're two different products, but they really work together. A lot of times when people are creating different pages or goals or even products, analytics, they use Tag Manager to help them track those products. So they're different, but they work together to help you track better. Got a comment here. They like my intro. They said they were a little overwhelmed. So yeah, I'll answer this question. I'll wrap up. Analytics can be overwhelming because it is a lot, and I did my best tonight to really kind of summarize analytics because it is very, very complex and it can be difficult. But I think the key we talked tonight and our next webinar is just understanding analytics and how it works, what's the purpose, and really understanding what things to focus on. And then in our next webinar, I do a better job of kind of showing you through screenshots really how analytics works. But analytics doesn't have to be hard, but once again, it's a lot of information. So knowing how to use analytics, knowing what to track and what not to track makes it a little easier. So I'm glad that you find my intro helpful. Okay. See one more question. So yeah, next class too, we'll have an activity where we set up our Google Analytics account. So if you have one, great. If not, next class, webinar will show you how to set up your own account in Google Analytics. So moving on to our recap. I've already said this, but analytics is so powerful because it helps you identify patterns in your customer behavior. And then you can take that data and you can make decisions with that data. So that's all it is. Analytics is telling you what is going on with your customers. And it's so important in digital marketing to identify those trends and those patterns. Because once again, everything we talk about through all these webinars is all about your customer. And analytics help you get a better understanding of what your customer, what they like and what they dislike. And then you can take the information and build that into your marketing campaign. So That's why analytics is so important. And it goes back to my first slide. It's like driving a car without a dashboard. That's not fun. You need to know how fast you're going, how much gas and oil you have left. And that's what analytics is. It gives you an understanding of what's going on with your digital marketing and what you need to change or leave the same. So once again, if you have any questions about anything I said, feel free to send an email to programs@usblackchambers.org. We'll do our best to get back to you. Also, if you have interest in any more webinars, the US Black Chambers has a ton of webinars from digital marketing to finance. You can visit usblackchambers.org for a list of upcoming events. Also, if you're on YouTube, if you're on Facebook or LinkedIn, this webinar has been recorded. So when we're done, if I say anything too fast or miss something, you can watch it again. If you go to the platform, there's a reminder you can click above that, so you can be reminded of the next webinar. So once again, ending. But thank you for your time tonight. I hope they did a good job of helping you get an understanding of digital marketing and analytics. And join us on Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time for part 2 of our class, How to Make Digital Marketing and Analytics Work for Your Business. And in that class, I really get deeper into how you can use Google Analytics. So thank you again, and I'll see you on Thursday. Thanks. Bye.